Hello. I'm going to go over another belated code review. As you can see, this was committed on October 28th. It is now December 9th. But let's talk about this feature. We have a score submission confirmation. What does that mean? Well, it looks like this. This is the image that I posted in my Discord when I released the feature. And what you're seeing is a results screen. And this part right here, the submission result text, did not used to be there. It was just blank space there. Yeah, but the return button was always there. That's not new. So what kind of submission result is this? Well, this is the submission of your score to the online leaderboards. Most of the time, people are not going to see score submitted. They're going to see something like the old score was better, because people very rarely get personal bests. But this happens every time you complete a song, whether you like it or not. It does try to save the score online. So if your account is set up properly and you're connected to the internet, it will submit your score to the leaderboard. But it used to not tell you about it at all. It used to just happen secretly in the background, and you would notice if you checked the leaderboards that your score was submitted. But now it's got this little text here. So let's look through the code. I think the right place to start is here in the playing display. So this function that we're seeing the tail end of, this one right here, is what gets executed when a song ends. And what do we got here? We create a results display, and we change the page. We unbind some keys. This is probably not relevant anymore, but this is how to describe this. This was back when I was testing the game's synchronization with audio, and so there was an interval that was like every few seconds checking whether it was synchronized. Not important. That was just for debugging. It didn't actually do anything, or it doesn't actually do anything now because it's clearly still here. Although I might have gotten rid of it recently. And then now at the very end of the end song process, you would just call this.submit score. And that would generally call this code, which is using the database client to put the score right here, the current score, percent score. That's what it used to do. It just submitted it. There was no connection to the results display or the play results page at all. So what I had to do was I don't know that I had to do it, but this is how I decided to solve the problem. I came over here to the play results page, and I said, well, naturally I'm going to need an HTML element to display the text. And what I'm going to do is, if this is the first draw frame for the page, because you see there's this draw method, and all of my pages, all the UI stuff, happens in the draw loop, which I suppose isn't terribly unusual. The only unusual thing about it is that I'm using HTML elements for my UI. That's the only unusual thing. But yeah, so here's the draw loop, and if this is the first frame of the draw loop, or if not, the element already exists, then what I do is I submit the score. So rather than submitting the score when the song ended, which is what I used to do, the score submission actually happens once the page loads, once we finish this end song routine, and the draw loop gets to pick up this new page again. But so how do we still access this code, which is clearly present in the playing display? What happens is I save a global variable, or a what do you call this? Not a parameter, but a something on this global variable, which I cleverly called global. Global.submit last place score is this.submit score, and then you have to bind the this keyword, which is a little bit tricky, but I've gotten used to it by now. So that basically saves a reference to this function so that I can call this code from another context, and that context is, of course, this results screen. So what I do is I say, oh, hey, submit the score when you first load the play results. And then now the submit score, before it didn't return anything. But now we're actually passing through this function the promise, which was, I mean, it was always there. I think in the database client, it was always returning a promise. I just didn't do anything with it. Yeah, I returned a promise that didn't return. It was just like an empty object. Yeah, but now the database client returns a promise. The put response. Basically, I just modified the put response because before the put response was just an empty object, an empty interface. So I modified that interface so that now every score submission comes with a code and a message. And the code is whether it's successful or score too low. Those are the only two cases that I'm handling right now. Presumably there are other cases that could happen. So far I haven't encountered them, but that's because I'm not very diligent in my testing at this stage. And then this message is relevant because what we do is we just display this message. When do we display this message? Well, after we submit the score, there's a then. I get the put response, and then what do? I call update score submission text, given this response that I've just received after successfully, well, not necessarily successfully, but getting a response after the submission, after finishing the submission. And then we figure out whether the submission was successful or not. If it was successful, oh, interesting. So, presumably, now why would I code it like this? Why wouldn't I just say always set the text of this text to be equal to the message? Well, I think I was being a little bit careful, like a little bit paranoid. I was worried that if I changed the response code interface at a later point in time, that I might not want this behavior for those other response codes. So I wrote this sort of defensively, like, okay, if we get any other response codes that I didn't anticipate at this point in time, if future me decides to create some crazy new response code, I'm just not going to acknowledge those. Which, yeah, I guess that's okay. It's preventing unexpected behavior, which is, it's kind of nice. There might be a more sensible way to do that, like maybe throw an error, so I'm forced to come and make the changes here. But yeah, that was the decision I made at the time. So yeah, that's about it. This is a relatively simple change. But it's a good opportunity for me to point out some things and maybe give a more thorough explanation about what's going on. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.